Have you ever felt like you're constantly being pushed around by other people's emotions, agendas, and demands? Like you're living your life on someone else's terms, reacting instead of acting, bending instead of standing firm? Here's the uncomfortable truth. You are being manipulated every single day. And the worst part is, you're letting it happen. Not because you're weak, but because no one ever taught you how to see it. How to recognize the invisible strings being pulled. How to build a mental shield so impenetrable that manipulation simply bounces off. What I'm about to share with you is not some modern self-help nonsense. This is ancient wisdom, practiced by warriors, philosophers, and strategists who understood that the battlefield is not outside, it's inside your mind. And once you master this, once you build your mental shield, people will try to manipulate you and they will fail. They'll feel confused, frustrated, powerless, because you'll have become untouchable. And that power, that sovereignty over your own mind, is what separates the free from the enslaved. Let's start with something most people never realize. Manipulation doesn't announce itself. It doesn't knock on your door wearing a villain's mask. It comes disguised as concern, as love, as advice, as normalcy. It whispers in the voice of your parents telling you what's best for your life. It hides in the tone of your partner who says they're hurt when really they're trying to control you. It lives in the expectations of friends who guilt you into decisions that serve them, not you. And the reason it works so well is because you've been conditioned since childhood to ignore your instincts, to prioritize other people's feelings over your own clarity, to believe that saying no makes you selfish. But here's what the ancient masters understood. The first step to building a mental shield is recognition. You cannot defend against what you cannot see, and manipulation thrives in the shadows of your awareness. So let's bring it into the light. There are patterns, subtle but consistent, that manipulators use. And once you learn to see them, you'll never be blind again. The first pattern is emotional coercion. This is when someone uses your emotions as leverage against you. They say things like, if you really cared about me, you would do this, or I'm so disappointed in you, not because they're genuinely hurt, but because they know your fear of disappointing them will make you comply. They weaponize guilt, shame, and obligation. And if you're someone who was raised to be a good person, to be empathetic, to care about others, this tactic hits you right in the core because you don't want to be the bad guy. So you bend, you sacrifice, you compromise your boundaries, and every time you do, the manipulator learns that this tactic works, so they use it again and again, until you're trapped in a cycle where your entire life revolves around managing their emotions instead of living your truth. The second pattern is gaslighting. This is when someone makes you doubt your own perception of reality. They deny things they said, twist your words, make you feel like you're overreacting or imagining things. I never said that, they insist, even though you clearly remember the conversation. You're too sensitive, they tell you, when you call out their disrespect. The goal is to destabilize your confidence in your own mind, because once they succeed in that, they control the narrative. And when you don't trust yourself, you have to rely on them to tell you what's real. That's the trap. And it's one of the most insidious forms of manipulation because it doesn't just control your actions, it controls your thoughts. The third pattern is intermittent reinforcement. This is the technique that keeps people addicted to toxic relationships, toxic jobs, toxic dynamics. The manipulator gives you just enough kindness, just enough validation, just enough hope to keep you hooked. But they never give it consistently. One day they're warm, the next they're cold. One moment they praise you, the next they tear you down. And your brain, desperate for that reward, keeps trying. You think, maybe if I just do this one more thing, they'll be kind again. But the kindness never lasts, and the cycle continues. This is the same mechanism casinos use with slot machines. Random rewards create the strongest form of behavioral conditioning. And manipulators know this, consciously or unconsciously. Now that you can see the patterns, the next step is to build the shield. And the foundation of that shield is something the Stoics called indifference to externals. This doesn't mean you don't care about people. It means you don't let their approval or disapproval dictate your sense of self. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Most people are enslaved because they care too much about what others think. They need validation, approval, acceptance. And that need is the opening through which manipulation enters. But when you cultivate indifference, when you genuinely stop needing anyone's approval to feel whole, something extraordinary happens. Manipulation loses its power, because manipulation only works when it can trigger an emotional reaction in you, when it can make you feel guilty, scared, ashamed, desperate. But if you're emotionally independent, if your sense of worth comes from within, then their tactics fall flat. They guilt you and you feel nothing. They threaten to leave and you're unbothered. They try to gaslight you and you trust your own perception more than their words. This is the mental shield in action. Here's a practical exercise you can start today. Every time someone tries to make you feel a certain way, pause. Don't react immediately. Ask yourself 3 questions. 1. What is this person trying to get me to do or feel? 2. Is this aligned with my values and my truth? 3. What would I do if I didn't care about their reaction? These questions create a mental buffer between their manipulation and your response. And in that buffer, you regain your power. Because now you're choosing your response, not reacting out of conditioning. But there's a deeper layer to this, because the most dangerous manipulators are not the obvious ones. They're the ones who truly believe they have your best interests at heart. Your parents who push you into a career you don't want, genuinely believing it's for your own good. Your partner who controls your social life, genuinely believing they're protecting you. Your friends who guilt you into staying small, genuinely believing they're keeping you safe. These people are not villains. They're operating from their own fears, their own conditioning, their own need for control. But just because their intentions are not malicious doesn't mean their impact is not harmful. And this is where most people fail. They think, but they love me, so I should listen. No. Love without respect for your autonomy is not love, it's control. And you have every right to reject it. The ancient samurai had a concept called mushin, which translates to no mind or empty mind. It's a state where you're fully present, fully aware, but not attached to any outcome. You're like water, fluid, adaptable, but not controllable. When someone tries to manipulate you, they're trying to impose their agenda onto your mind. But if your mind is mushin, their agenda has nothing to latch onto. It flows through you without sticking. You hear their words, you understand their intention, but you remain centered in your own truth. This is the highest level of the mental shield. Not fighting against manipulation, but being so grounded in yourself that manipulation simply doesn't land. Let's talk about boundaries, because this is where most people crumble. They know they're being manipulated. They even recognize the patterns. But they don't enforce boundaries because they're terrified of the consequences. They're afraid of being called selfish, of being abandoned, of causing conflict. So they tolerate the intolerable. They let people cross lines again and again. And every time a boundary is violated without consequence, it gets weaker, until eventually you have no boundaries left. You're just a collection of other people's expectations. But here's the truth that will set you free. Boundaries are not negotiable. They're not up for debate. They're not something you need to justify or explain. A boundary is simply a statement of what you will and will not accept in your life. And the people who truly respect you will honor them. The people who don't will test them. And that's how you know who belongs in your life and who doesn't. The mental shield is not just about blocking manipulation, it's about creating a force field around your life that only allows in what aligns with your truth. Here's a boundary framework you can use. When someone crosses a line, you don't argue, you don't explain, you don't justify. You simply state the boundary clearly and calmly. I don't allow people to speak to me that way. I don't make decisions based on guilt. I need time to think before I respond. And then, most importantly, you enforce it. If they cross it again, there's a consequence, not as punishment, but as protection. Maybe it's distance. Maybe it's ending the conversation. Maybe it's ending the relationship. But the consequence is non-negotiable, because without enforcement, a boundary is just a suggestion. Now let's address the fear that comes up when you start building this shield. The fear that if you stop being manipulated, you'll be alone, that people will leave, that you'll be seen as cold, difficult, unloving. This fear is real and it's valid. But here's what you need to understand. The people who leave when you set boundaries were never truly there for you. They were there for what they could get from you. And yes, you might lose people. You might lose family members who can't handle your autonomy. You might lose friends who were only around because you always said yes. You might lose a partner who needed you to be small so they could feel big, and that will hurt. But what you gain is far more valuable. You gain yourself. You gain peace. You gain the ability to breathe without someone else's agenda suffocating you. You gain relationships that are built on mutual respect, not manipulation. The Stoics had a saying, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Most of the fear you have about setting boundaries, about building your mental shield, is about imagined consequences that will never actually happen. Or, if they do happen, they're not nearly as devastating as you think. Yes, people might get upset. Yes, there might be conflict. But conflict is not the end of the world. And their upset is not your responsibility. You are not responsible for managing other people's emotions. You are only responsible for honoring your own truth. Let's go deeper into the concept of emotional autonomy, because this is the core of the mental shield. Emotional autonomy means your emotional state is not dependent on external circumstances or other people's behavior. Most people are like emotional ping-pong balls, bouncing between highs and lows based on what's happening around them. Someone praises them, they feel great. Someone criticizes them, they feel terrible. Someone is kind, they're happy. Someone is cold, they're devastated. This is not autonomy, this is slavery. Because when your emotions are controlled by externals, you are controllable. But when you achieve emotional autonomy, you become sovereign. Your peace is internal, your joy is internal, your sense of worth is internal. This doesn't mean you don't feel emotions, it means your emotions are responses, not reactions. You feel them, you acknowledge them, but they don't dictate your behavior. Someone insults you and you feel a flash of irritation, but you don't lash out. Someone tries to guilt you and you notice the discomfort, but you don't comply. Someone withdraws their affection and you feel the sting, but you don't chase. This is power, this is freedom, and this is what terrifies manipulators because they have no leverage over you. Here's a visualization exercise that can help you build this autonomy. Close your eyes and imagine yourself as a mountain, solid, unmovable, grounded. Now imagine the weather around you changing. Sometimes it's sunny, sometimes it's stormy. Sometimes there's wind, sometimes there's calm. But you, the mountain, remain unchanged. The weather is not you. It's happening around you, but it doesn't define you. This is how you relate to other people's emotions and agendas. They're the weather. You're the mountain. They can rage, they can plead, they can manipulate, but you remain grounded in yourself. There's one more layer to this, and it's the most important. The mental shield is not just about protecting yourself from others. It's about protecting yourself from yourself. Because the truth is, the most effective manipulator in your life is often your own mind. Your fears, your insecurities, your conditioning, they manipulate you into staying small, into avoiding risk, into choosing comfort over growth. Your mind tells you, don't set that boundary, they'll leave. Don't speak your truth, they'll judge you. Don't pursue that dream, you'll fail. And you believe it. You let your own thoughts manipulate you into a life that's safe but suffocating. The mental shield, when fully developed, protects you from these internal manipulations as well. You learn to observe your thoughts without believing them. You learn to question the narratives your mind creates. Is this thought true? Or is it just fear talking? Is this belief serving me? Or is it limiting me? This level of self-awareness is rare. Most people are completely identified with their thoughts, believing every story their mind tells them. But when you develop the shield, you create space between you and your thoughts. And in that space, you're free. The ancient method to stop being manipulated is not a technique. It's a way of being. It's a commitment to sovereignty, to self-awareness, to boundaries, to emotional autonomy. It's the decision that no one, not your family, not your friends, not your partner, not society, not even your own fearful mind, gets to dictate who you are and how you live. And when you make that decision, when you truly commit to it, everything changes. You walk into rooms differently, you speak differently. You carry yourself with a quiet confidence that people can feel but can't quite explain. Because you're no longer playing the game. You're no longer trying to please, to perform, to prove. You're just being, fully, unapologetically, authentically. And here's the paradox. When you stop trying to be liked, people respect you more. When you stop trying to avoid conflict, your relationships get healthier. When you stop being manipulated, you attract people who don't want to manipulate you, because the mental shield doesn't just keep out the bad, it attracts the good. It creates a frequency that only resonates with those who operate with integrity, with respect, with authenticity. And those are the only people worth having in your life anyway. So here's your challenge. Starting today, commit to building your mental shield. Start recognizing the patterns of manipulation around you. Start cultivating emotional autonomy. Start setting boundaries and enforcing them. Start questioning your own thoughts. And most importantly, start living from your truth, not from other people's expectations. It won't be easy. There will be resistance from others and from yourself. But on the other side of that resistance is a life you can't even imagine right now. A life where you're free. Truly free. If you made it this far, if every word resonated deep in your bones, then you're ready. You're ready to stop being a puppet and become the master of your own mind. To mark this moment, to seal this commitment, leave this phrase in the comments. I am the shield, not for me, not for the algorithm, but as a declaration to yourself. A reminder that no one controls you anymore. And if this message awakened something in you, if it gave you clarity you've been searching for, then subscribe. Because here we don't teach you how to fit in. We teach you how to stand alone, unshaken, unbroken, untouchable. Welcome to your sovereignty. Welcome to your shield.